Being compliant is just straightforward. Being maliciously compliant? Well, that's another story. Welcome to this episode of Malicious Compliance. Our first one is from ZZ Del Marco. I'm posting mainly because I'm not a passive-aggressive type and I'm in disbelief that this actually worked. Ever since I started at my job a few months ago, my supervisor, we'll call him Josh, has been micromanaging me. When I'm the subject of criticism, which is often, I try to give him the benefit of the doubt and ask him to clarify. What are your expectations? What specifically should I have done differently? Josh's responses are always vague, often something to the effort of, just do better. I even had a meeting with Josh and HR to address this, but to no avail. Yesterday, Josh comes to my desk to tell me I need to dress better. Now, I work at a small company, and the vibe is unusually casual. A not insignificant number of people come to work wearing jeans, hoodies, t-shirts, and/or baseball caps. I've never worn a hat to work, and I make a point of wearing a button-up shirt with a collar every day. This particular day, I was wearing a long-sleeve button-up flannel, chino pants, and Adidas Gazelles. Other days, I wear loafers and dress shirts that are tucked in. So I asked Josh to clarify. Should I be wearing dress shoes, dress shirt, tucked in? What specifically do you want me to change? Josh just tells me I need to dress better and that I should talk to HR for clarification. So I go into HR and ask, what is the dress code? I get a standard answer. Pants, closed-toed shoes, no sleeveless shirts, etc. I ask, have I ever worn anything to work that poses a problem? HR says, no, you're fine. Because I'm mad, and because of my repeated efforts to resolve this kind of problem had gone unheeded, I decided to be petty. The next day, today, I showed up to work in a full suit. It's one I keep for events like weddings, so it's fitted and I look really sharp in it. It's also wildly and conspicuously overdressed for the office I work in. I had several interactions with people coming to my desk to comment on my outfit and ask what the occasion was. When anyone asked, only if they asked, I told them that I had been told to dress better. This was always met with disbelief and incredulity. 2 people even said that they liked the way I dressed normally. When anyone asked me who the order came from, again, only if they asked, I told them it came from Josh. I was expecting to pull my little stunt for a week just to prove a point, and then go back to wearing what I had been wearing before. Word got around the office fast, apparently, because the CEO, Josh's direct boss, came to my desk later in the day to tell me I would be reporting to him now, and that he'd be having a talk with Josh about this and other issues. It's important to note that I was Josh's only underling, so he effectively went from being a supervisor to just a regular employee. I'm on a bit of a high now. I think I'm going to come into work tomorrow wearing a different one of my flannels. Edit. This blew up. Thank you all for the support. No, this isn't AI, and I didn't use ChatGPT to edit for style or grammar. I genuinely like dashes, and I use them regularly in writing. I promise. How closed-minded does one have to be, especially if they only have one person under them? Were they so terrified that the big CEO was gonna see this OP and be like, nope, you're gonna get demoted because you have a worker under you that's not following rules? If that was literally their thought process, how that backfired. This next one is by Tawny Fritz. Our yard is wild. I mean that in the real definition of living or growing in the natural environment. We have no lawn. We aggressively remove and prevent invasive and noxious species of plants and ensure that what grows is native to our area and drought resistant. The wildflowers that grow are things like lupine, blue flax, spiderwort, black-eyed Susan, and sunflowers, among others. We have natural elements like driftwood logs to retain water, and we even have an elk skull in the yard to act as a shelter for critters. There are a plethora of birds, bees, bunnies, and other wildlife. More wildlife than any yard in the area, as far as I can tell. It's beautiful and alive, but definitely not a manicured lawn with perfectly cut grass and landscaping. Last summer, we got a notification from the county that our yard was in violation of some county ordinance. My husband called the number on the notice and got a very over-it employee who let out a big sigh and said he had gotten like 30 complaints from one person for the entire strip of road that we live on. Keep in mind, you can't batch report an area. You have to file reports house by house. So someone had the time and energy to pull up Google Maps and file a report for about 30 houses for overgrown weeds. I checked the county ordinance and made sure everything we had in our yard was in compliance. Things like purposely cultivated, which our wildflowers definitely were. We planted specific species of seeds and we remove whatever's not native. None of the wild plants block any of the sidewalks, nor do they hang over onto any other properties. Knowing that it was someone with way too much time on their hands, I did some reading and learned that my yard had everything needed and then some to qualify as a national wildlife habitat. So I filled out the form, paid the fee, and got my certificate. My husband called the county employee back who said, "Send me that certificate." He looked it over, thanked my husband for the new information he can use in the future, and closed our case. I now have signs on my yard that announce the property as a wildlife habitat, and the birds and bees get to keep living happily in the wild. Why is it always the one person that had a stick shoved so far up their ass and broken off sideways, the one that's always doing shit like this trying to cause problems for other people? I really am glad that the OP was able to get one up on them though, and the complainer can't do a thing about it. And our final one is from Blue Boy 714. This happened decades ago, but after reading another Malicious Compliance, I figured I'd post this. I was a manager of a programming department. I initially had 5 programmers reporting to me, and I was able to spend half of my time programming and half managing. I'd always gotten exceeds or far exceeds expectations on my annual reviews. About 10 years later, my team had 25 people, and I was spending less and less time programming. Fast forward a few years and I missed 2 months during the year for a surgery and hospital stay, and in my annual review, my boss, who knew nothing about programming, told me I was not doing a good job and the programming department was missing deliverable dates, probably because I was in the hospital. They wanted me to go back to programming and I was stripped of manager and only focus on programming. I was pissed off, but told them I can do that. I told my former staff what had happened and told them to direct all questions to my boss, who knew zero about programming. He was overwhelmed and soon senior management figured out that my boss was the problem, not me. They canned him and replaced him with the VP of programming in the UK. I am in the US. She was great since she started as a programmer and was an excellent boss in general. Since I was just a programmer now, all of the managers were in the UK, and I told my former staff to direct all questions to their new bosses in the UK. Since there was a 6-hour time difference and we only overlapped 2 or 3 hours each day, that made getting questions answered in a timely fashion quite difficult. In the meantime, my health wasn't the best and my doctor told me I should go to a 4-day, 32-hour work week, so my health wouldn't continue to suffer. Since my employer was a strict 40-hour-a-week company, I looked for another job and got 8 offers in about a month. I was ready to resign. Finally, after a few months, my new boss asked me to be a manager again, because of the time difference between US and UK, and because I was the most experienced programmer in the company. Instead, I gave her my resignation and explained why. She asked me what it would take to get me to stay, and I told her I wanted a 10% raise and wanted to work a 4-day, 32-hour work week. I gave her 24 hours to respond. She spoke to higher-ups and finally came back the next day and agreed. I always get joy when a manager who really just doesn't belong in a position they're in gets removed, and in this case, OP's boss was just clearly the problem, and I'm glad in the end OP ended up becoming a manager again and getting a raise and a schedule they desired. Alright, that's enough maliciousness for the day. Well, that wraps up this episode of Malicious Compliance. If you liked the video, please drop a like, share my content on all of your social media, subscribe if you haven't already, and make sure to hit that bell so you're notified every time I upload, and drop a comment down below. It really helps with the algorithm and helps new people find my channel. Thanks for watching, Thanks to my patrons and super thanks contributors. Have a great day and stay safe out there.